First of all, we see a massive growth of youth youth wealth, shall we say? Mostly
Mm,
United States. Perhaps it had related to the tech industry. We don't know. It's well, I think we do know what it is. It is tech related. It
yeah,
is the massage transfer of wealth to grandchildren to children. I mean, it's like never been before, and those people and those young people enjoy a villa as much as Grandpa would when he rents it out every year for the family reunification trip. They
yeah,
just use it for different reasons. They're there with nine buddies who want to surf. They
yeah.
don't care about the cluttery, but they'll still spend the 5, 10, 15 grand a day.
Welcome to Behind the Stays, a podcast that shares the stories behind your favorite boutique hotels, short-term rentals, and hospitality brands, and the hosts, operators, and entrepreneurs who've brought them to life. Every Tuesday and Friday, you'll meet the military veterans, the retired flight attendants, the tech entrepreneurs, the school teachers, the single moms, the hoteliers, and real estate investors, who are all, in their own unique ways, shaping the future of travel and hospitality. Discover how these visionaries from all over the world have built stunning landscape hotels in the mountains, designed bohemian bungalows on the beach, erected eclectic, off-grid, nature-immersed escapes, and so much more. Behind the Stays is brought to you by Journey, a first-of-its-kind loyalty program that brings together an alliance of the world's top independently owned and operated stays and allows travelers to earn points and perks on boutique hotels, vacation rentals, tree houses, ski chalets, glamping experiences, and so much more. And I'm your host, Zach Boozy-Cruz, head of the Journey Alliance. All right, friends, without further ado, enjoy the show. In just a moment, you'll meet Wolf Worcester, founder of Sirreti. Imagine owning so many homes around the world that you lose track of them. So instead of letting them sit empty, you hire someone to manage them, curate them, and quietly offer them to an elite circle of travelers who can afford $20,000 a night stays. If that's the world that you happen to live in, you might know Wolf Worcester. As the founder of Sirreti, a private network shaping the ultra-luxury villa and private residence industry, Wolf works with high net worth individuals, property managers, and travel advisors to create the most exclusive stays on the planet. Homes so private and so pristine that they don't even appear on public listings most of the time. One of his clients, Michael Dell, the billionaire founder of Dell Computers. That's the level we're talking about here. But what makes a property truly ultra luxury? And how has high-end travel changed as younger billionaires and younger high net worth individuals step onto the scene, throwing traditional expectations out the window? In this episode, Wolf and I explore the secret world of ultra high net worth travel, where money is almost meaningless, but privacy and exclusivity are everything. We talk about why younger billionaires travel differently, from tech founders to heirs of generational wealth, how their spending habits and preferences are reshaping luxury hospitality in real time. We talk about how Sirreti is redefining luxury standards and why even the wealthiest travelers don't just want high thread count sheets, they want a story, an experience, and a seamless booking process. We uncover a lot of the hidden flaws in the ultra-luxury hospitality space, from outdated tech to service inconsistencies, and why the highest-end stays in the world still struggle with guest experience. We talk about the role of travel advisors in the elite world, why they're more important than ever before, and why smart operators are shifting away from OTAs and, in some cases, even direct bookings to focus on this lucrative channel. We talk about the rise and fall of luxury markets, why Ibiza and St. Bart's are struggling, while other under-the-radar destinations are thriving. And last but certainly not least, we talk about why there's still no Ritz-Carlton of private stays and what it would take to build a recognizable ultra-luxury brand in the vacation rental industry. All right, friends, without further ado, get ready to meet Wolf. All right, Wolf, we are live. Thank you, sir, for joining me today. How are you doing?
I am good. Good afternoon or good morning. I'm happy to chat with you. First time.
I know. It's an honor to meet you, and you are joining us from Vienna, Austria this morning. Or actually, I should say my morning, your afternoon slash we're probably getting into evening territory. So thanks for making the time to chat. I've been following you on LinkedIn for a while, and I've learned a little bit about Sirreti and your consultancy and whatnot. And I really just wanted to dive in and have a series of conversations, but I really wanted to focus most of our conversation around curation and sort of like the rise of curation, especially in the luxury space. But before we get into all of that fun stuff, I'd love to just kind of hear like the story of Sirreti. Like where did the idea come from? Tell the listeners, I guess, what Sirreti is, And then just talk a little bit about the stepping stones that led to where you guys are today.
I'd be happy to. We all like talking about our stuff, don't we? So for sure. I started Sirreti, gosh, just pretty recently in recent years during COVID.
Okay.
Previously, I had a property management company in North America and a villa agency, two separate companies, same client type, quite high end, quite global in terms of the clients, and sold the last one, I guess 18 or 19. Took a break and then realized in 2020, when I started in 2000, I didn't have this was 6, 7 years pre Airbnb, let alone mainstream vacation rental industry.
Yeah.
So I did it all wrong. I was a property manager in Miami, in Palm Springs, in Vancouver. I didn't know that you grow a portfolio in one market and you manage that properly. So needless to say, it was a bit of a mess. So I thought there's something that we didn't have now that we're almost a mainstream industry and growing so fast with little education. I thought in 2020 to start Sirreti was really for guys like me, maybe just a little bit far behind, say, hey, we have a networking group here. We can
Mm,
learn from my mistakes. We have a great database of travel advisors, media. We have a PR firm with us now. And the shortcut way that I didn't do and work together and sort of create a luxury network of PMs or villa agencies and even individual property owners. And that's what
yeah.
we've done. It's kind of like it's a community is what we are.
And I'm curious, is there any consumer facing aspect to it? I wasn't sure if you guys were kind of focused on, and I was exploring your website last night and this morning, and I mean, some of the villas you guys have are absolutely stunning. I'm just curious, is there sort of a consumer play here in terms of a marketplace or a site aggregation or a niche OTA play at all? Like, is that something that you guys are thinking through, or right now it's really primarily focused on community?
We have three sort of, I won't say divisions, but aspects to our business. We have the Sirreti community, which is a closed B2B platform with a platform style, like a mini LinkedIn, where
Yep.
we have an event every year. We network every day. I talk to members every day. There's travel trade partners on there, and that's a community. And then we have something that we started last year called the Sirreti List. That
Mm,
was for the top of individual properties, and that is consumer facing, SirretiList.com.
yeah.
And it has nothing to do with membership. It was helping us create a standards guide. And by
Yeah.
this, we had a group of independent professionals in the industry put together. We spent a long time putting this guide together. What constitutes as a luxury standard, which, we started disliking this word because, it means something to everybody else. And what is ultra
Yeah.
luxury? It depends where you're
Yeah.
from. It depends how much money you have. Depends on what you consider luxury, and that's consumer facing.
Yeah.
And then recently, because we also have a data team in the community, and I've learned from them and also been encouraged to go back into the property management side, and I've thought about it carefully. And we've just started Serenity Residences, and that's
Mm,
consumer, although it's a closed platform because it's ultra high end.
yeah.
I can tell you a little bit. We have homes just in Europe, just a handful,
Okay.
and these are homes that have never been on the market before. We start from scratch with the owner,
Wow.
several months of onboarding, and our price point, our least expensive property is 20,000 a night, to give you an idea, and it
Wow.
goes up. So
Yeah.
it's not for everyone, and it's not it's a service. It's the location, it's the size of property, if you will, and that's on a closed platform for the privacy of the owner and privacy of clients. And so that is somewhat consumer facing, I suppose, to answer your question.
Yeah. No. Well said. I actually want to dive into this because this idea of luxury and it meaning obviously loads of different things depending on who you speak to and sort of like what their background is. What luxury, whether they've ever been on like a luxury vacation or not, right?
Right.
It's one of those things. It's like beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and in some respects, so is luxury. And yet, from my perspective, we're seeing sort of this like emergence of what I would just call like new luxury. I've been sort of trying to brand this term as travelers who they're high net worth individuals. They enjoy spending a lot of money on experiences. They're the kind of individual that might stay at a tree house that's $1,000 a night, right? Or even $1,500 a night, like little 320 square foot mirror house, just because it like evokes emotion and looks good on Instagram, quite frankly. And so
Totally. Yeah.
you're seeing sort of these travelers that I would define as new luxury travelers seeking places that aren't Four Seasons or the Ritz Carlton or some of these traditional brands that evoke luxury, at least in the eye of the general consumer. What observations do you have, given sort of where you sit in the industry, on how luxury travel has changed or evolved, especially, let's say, in the last 5 years coming out of the pandemic?
Really, really good question. And kind of to what I was saying in the beginning, depends where you're from and who you are.
Yeah,
First of
yeah.
all, we see a massive growth of youth youth wealth, shall we say, mostly
Mm,
United States. Perhaps it had related to the tech industry. We don't know. It's well, I think we do know what it is. It is tech related. It
yeah,
is the massage transfer of wealth to grandchildren to children. I mean, it's like never been before, and those people and those young people enjoy a villa as much as Grandpa would when he rents it out every year for the family reunification trip. They
yeah,
just use it for different reasons. They're there with nine buddies who want to surf. They
yeah,
don't care about the cluttery, but they'll still spend the 5, 10, 15 grand a day. So
yeah,
that has changed. But we all know, or many of us know on the luxury side of things, that it's more experiential travel now. We're going there
yeah.
for a reason. We're not just going to sit at the beach in the sun. Everybody wants maybe it's cooking lessons, or maybe it's something a bit focused on activity, historical, learning perhaps. So that's changed a bit since I started.
Do you think your observations as a former PM yourself? I feel like there's sort of like two options right now in the market. You can either figure out how to produce a product that's as luxury as you can, given your experience, given your context, right? Given the product, right? The inventory that you're working with, or it's like a race to the bottom in terms of price. Like it seems like
Right.
we've kind of like hollowed out like the mid tier. I don't know. Like, that's my observation. Would you agree with that? Are there other observations you have on sort of just like the state of the market with respect to the type of product that is available today?
I think you're right. In some markets, and there's some big brands that have even these, who've some CEOs or founders have told me, listen, we're going. I I use the words. I repeat his words. We're going Walmart, and
Mm,
then I get it because he's probably has this board. Him and his board probably get pushed from the VC. We
yep.
need volume. We don't care if it's fancy, and so there's different reasons why that's changed. But I
Yeah.
think you're absolutely right. There's the mass volume because there's mass acceptance in vacation rentals over the last couple of years, particularly since COVID, and I think those one reason perhaps that's been divided. And we see now the uber wealthy. I mean, we have some members that their homes are 70,000 a day. It is
Wow.
out of control. I've never seen that before. 40,
Wow.
50,000 is, I won't say not that unusual, but not that unusual in our little circle in the ultra side.
Yeah.
It's out of control, the price points, you know? And so, yeah, you see the dramatic difference. You're absolutely right.
Do you think, given the shift you're seeing in the customers who are booking these experiences, we talked about sort of like maybe it's not grandpa and the family reunion, instead it's the buddy and his a guy and his 8 friends that are going on a surfing trip, right? This audience presumably is a little bit more of a tech enabled audience, even they're used to using technology to serve them throughout the day. I'm curious your thoughts when I think about some of these experiences, and I've never stayed in a place that was, $100,000 a night or twenty thousand
You're not
dollars a night or
alone.
$70,000 a night, right? I've stayed in some beautiful, amazing places
Sure.
though, and some of the places that I've been to, that I consider to be some of the most luxurious places I've ever stayed, with respect to tech, they fall short often, right? Like
Good
sometimes you
point.
get a text from somebody, you're told to call this guy, this number, this driver. It's not, and you get a call randomly, and the guy says, "Hey, this is Mike. I'm here to pick you up." And you're like, "Who's Mike?" And then you realize, oh, the owner of the property or the PM like gave Mike my number, and now he's calling me. And it's not that it's sort of like a bad experience per se, but it's not a cohesive experience.
Good point.
And I'm curious, do you find that there's sort of this gap that exists at this level with respect to sort of leveraging technology to augment the experience? Does that matter at all at that level? How do you think, I guess, about the service component with respect to technology that product at this caliber sort of commands or doesn't command?
That's a really good point, and I hate to refer back to previous answers because two of them have noted that it depends where you're from and what your expectations are. But
Yeah.
absolutely, and unfortunately, and we're all guilty of it. Some of us are stuck in our ways of how we operate, and no,
Yeah.
that's how we do it. We have 80 great homes here, and in Aspen or wherever we are, and that's how we function. And I think more needs to be attended to the clients' needs and their changing demographic. And I know we all just get so rolled up in our business, we don't really pay attention. We don't do surveys to clients anymore. We need to
Yeah.
do that. And that will solve. Then we'll know exactly what our group of clients do want. But I think there's a lot of opportunity on the general staffing and service wise. Yeah, it's full tilt now. It's not traditional butler, but there's someone full time available to take your call all the time. There's more into the daily housekeeping as opposed to midweek or end stay. That certainly has changed in the mainstream luxury. But the technology is all over the place. So you're dead
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I feel like, right, the argument that I hear from folks in the ultra luxury space is like, oh, like I was talking to a lady actually at an event a couple weeks ago, and she has about 25 homes in sort of like the greater Miami area. She says, I've never taken a credit card from my guests, right? They all just wire the money. They
Mhm.
oftentimes arrive in private jets. Like that's sort of her
Mhm.
caliber of client, which
Oh,
is probably not too dissimilar from the caliber that you're talking, that you're familiar with.
mhm.
But anyways, what was striking to me about her conversation, the conversation that we're having, she's like, "Oh yeah, no one cares about a tech enabled experience once you're at this, at this level." And I thought, "Oh, okay, that's interesting." Except for the fact that as more and more operators have this sort of inventory, right? At some point in time, and as consumers, quite frankly, rise to be able to afford these sorts of experiences and desire more of these experiences, at some point in time, right? If the product is more or less the same and the location is more or less the same,
Mhm.
does the consumer choose the experience that requires less friction than the other experience? I bet. I bet they do, right? Unless there is something that is
Makes perfect sense. Right,
truly unique, right? About what you have that you can't find anywhere else in the world.
right, right.
And yeah, it's just funny that you haven't seen technology in like a meaningful way kind of creep into this caliber. And I get my guess is that the market, like the TAM here, is
Mhm.
probably just not quite large enough to maybe justify the investment or the expense. I don't know. I'm just guessing here.
I think you're right, and I think it's still early days in our business, and I think there's easy access, there's little regulation, little education. People just they've managed their own Airbnb over COVID, and
Yeah.
a year later they have 20 properties because their neighbors and their cousins say this is great, and they haven't followed. They haven't. There's very few sort of leaders on that side. They just
Yeah.
do what's needed to be done. I think we're still early with that. I think you're dead on, and and you speak about how the demographics change and how the tech should follow along, even the booking process. Well, of course, it was different when I started 25 years ago. Now, with Surrey residents, we're taking bookings from the PAs who are half my age. Well, you know
Yeah.
what? They're twice as good as, and they use, we're getting messages on Instagram and other sorts of. So we have to change.
Yeah. Yeah. What are your observations on anything specific that these travelers desire or expect or are asking for that just might be a little bit different than what their parents or their grandparents asked for? Have there been anything that has stood out to you? People talk about wanting, private chefs and whatnot, but I feel like that's sort of like generation agnostic, right? Most people would like an experience like that. Is there anything that you feel is like unique to sort of these younger travelers that are high net worth individuals that you've observed? And if so, what are those things?
The younger wealth specifically,
Yeah, yes.
they care less about a lot of things. They just want the location.
Yeah.
The money seems to be a bit meaningless because
Mm.
I don't know. I used to have Michael Dell
Wow.
Computers as a client,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then several months later, for example, one of his assistants or someone in his office said, "Hey, he's got dozens of homes. Could you take one and manage it?" It's sitting empty with staff, and I remember that time he was worth maybe 2 or 3 billion.
Wow.
Now he's worth over 100 billion. So when I see these young people, how the money is almost meaningless. It's
Yeah.
not about the money. And so I find that in some of I don't speak to a lot of the clients directly, but we get the feedback that it's a little bit that way with them now from the start. Um, What has changed with the existing or my previous type of sort of the clientele, the older, the 50 and above, they want to have a defibrillator in the home. Now
Mm,
it's about health and safety and privacy. They want to live
mm,
longer. They're very fit, and they care about and privacy too, because the wealth is just exaggerated, and now the privacy was why one reason why we have a closed platform. We don't even show the
yeah,
house. Right?
yeah,
So those are two things I think that have changed.
yeah, yeah. No, I think those are good observations. What do you think about data in this space? Because, and again, let's maybe sort of separate this particular closed knit community from just general observations that you have having been in the industry for a while. When I think about myself as a consumer, and I think about when I stay at a beautiful independent property, whether it's a villa or a boutique hotel, and then I go to another beautiful, incredible property that's also independent, there's obviously no like data sharing right between these properties
Mhm.
because they're not flagged, right? They're not a part of the same parent company. They're true independents, and yet as a consumer, right? There's a lot of value, and I think one of the reasons people stick with the big hotel brands is because there's value in like being known. People like being
Yep,
known. People
yep,
like not
yep.
having to sort of like repeat themselves. And I would argue even sort of like within the Bonvoy ecosystem or the honors ecosystem,
Mhm.
that data is not as like action. In my experience,
Good point.
anyways,
Good
I
point.
still have to tell people multiple times, right, what I like and what I don't like, even if I'm staying within the same brand within the portfolio, right? And those are because of lots of reasons. Anyhow, I'm curious. Do you have any observations or uh, thoughts or predictions on sort of how data can be better used in the consumer experience to help independent operators better serve better serve their guests? Any sort of musings there?
I think at the very high end, we as my old competitors and colleagues, and we're a member of the community, we take a lot of that data, pre-data booking information. We
Yeah.
know how old every member of the family is.
Yep.
I mean, it's a lot more to it than an on, booking.com or any of the channels, right?
Yep.
Because it's not just about the book. There's a lot more to the booking process, and that's where it's limited.
Hmm.
And I think it's also it's almost impossible to get any data. We're talking to a key data the other day, and you can't access our little niche business data because we're not online, we're not using the channels, so there's no
Yeah.
information to share. The numbers are
Yeah.
very small, we know that, but it's really up to the PM to do his or her job the best and to find out about the client. It's, many will still participate in post travel surveys, and it's really up to you internally. There's no question that's a loose wig.
Yeah. Yeah. As you think about Serenity List and you think about your curation standards, what do you guys focus on? Like how do you determine what property makes that list?
That's great question. That's why there's five of us who decide together independently, and it does have to be, and we have to all unanimously agree.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it can't be just be okay, four or five. Okay, it's good enough. No, we all have to, and that's years. We're all seniors in the business, shall we say? I've got a little bit of gray hair. Well, the ones who have hair still, but it's really balancing what's out there in the market, what isn't, what's the price point, the location, the service, even the digital marketing, the quality of the photos tell a lot of how your stay will be. It's not,
Yeah.
it's you can go such there's so many points. It's a document that took us 10 months to create. We're really
Wow.
proud that we went through this effort. Okay, non-revenue effort, but we know it was was something that the industry needed. There's so many points from privacy to the booking process to the space to the quality of the bedding and amenities and the service staff. There's probably I think about 12 points there that are generally paid attention by the guest.
And this list, this is PM agnostic, right? Like meaning
Correct.
you guys will curate inventory regardless of who the property manager
Anybody, don't
is.
have to be a
Yeah.
Serenity member. We have no relationship. No, we've taken right from owners direct to properties managers will have 50 properties and they submit one and we review it. 100%.
What do you think about plays like this, right? So I don't know if you're how familiar you are with like the 100 collection in the vacation rental space, right? As a play, we're doing something we're building a loyalty platform here at Journey, and
Right.
it's a slightly different model. But what are your thoughts on sort of curating for the consumer? The thoughts of these like essentially sort of like hyper curated, personalized lists that just kind of make travel search easier. Are these businesses? Are these features? Like, how do you think about the value of these?
Well, I can tell you, Sirreti List was non-revenue generating. We don't take bookings. We won't do that.
Yeah,
We don't participate in that. That's where you
yeah,
go on there, you can go right to the PM or the owner, whatnot. So that's what we like about it. We're unbiased. And
yeah,
same with this community. We don't take bookings. We have a
yeah,
PR firm, and she says, "Look, we got a media interested in France. We want to talk to some members. I just introduce them, I connect them, and we stay out of it."
yeah,
So that was important to us. It's different now with my PM, but I think that's very biased. I think any, some of the companies you've mentioned, really to be really unbiased is
yeah,
should be an important part of this curation. We all get it. We approve it. It's a marketing activity, but it can
yeah,
still be valid. And
yeah,
I think you should have a handful of independent professionals participate in that. And then I think the unbiased goes away, and you probably have more consumer attraction that way. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
I think it's more attractive than people don't feel it's just your personal list.
Well, and it probably also just depends on the consumer, right? Like some
Of
consumers, they
course.
they just love tons of choice. Like
Yeah.
I was listening to a conversation the other day about like how people just everyone like one of Airbnb's biggest feature requests is like more filters, right?
Oh, okay.
Like the consumer wants more
Okay.
like filters, right? But right, I would argue that that's a very different consumer than the folks that
Yeah.
you're targeting. And so at the end of the day, I do think there are probably two ends of the spectrum here. The folks that really want to explore everything, those individuals have more time, right? They might be looking for the best deal possible, right? They might be looking for a very specific set of dates. Like there are some sort of these underlying sort of like must haves as a part of their search. Whereas the consumer that you're talking to, probably a little bit more, maybe a little bit more flexible on where and when, probably doesn't care about cost, probably doesn't necessarily care about bedroom count and bath count outside of like, the basics or something like that. They're much more interested in just what is the ambiance of the home, what is the service of the home, what is the privacy of the home, as you've said. So it seems sort of like consumers are bucketing themselves into more or less one extreme or the other, which is why sometimes these
That's a good
plays
point,
make sense. Yeah.
Zach. I think you're totally accurate in my experience.
I'm curious, Wolf, when you think about the vacation rental industry and you think about, maybe even just stick with high end villas like you're more familiar with. Why do you think we haven't seen sort of a great national consumer recognizing consumer recognized brand emerge? What are your thoughts there?
Well, first of all, I can tell you, hotel brands are I mean, vacation rental industry's biggest competitor. And if we don't
Yeah,
get it together, we're never going to compete with some of them. They have the
yeah,
amenities, they have the service, they have the staff, they have the funding to build what the client wants, and they have the brand. And we don't
yeah,
have that brand yet. I don't know. I think part is logistics, that every house is so different. It's hard
yeah,
to create a standard brand. We're trying to do that with sorority residences. We
yeah,
can do it from the staffing aspect. We can do it, which we know are popular destinations. But we have two homes, one in Switzerland, one in Rome right now, that you can't compare. One's 10,000 square feet, the other is 30,000 square feet.
wow, yeah.
So it's that's probably the challenge that will always be there with us.
And do you think, I mean, from my perspective, it's also it's those challenges, but it's also the supply, right? Meaning the great hotel brands of the world, they have density in markets. They
Yes,
have they
yes,
have huge supply, and it's very difficult, I think, for property managers, even ones that have incredible brands, to be able to scale the supply in a
absolutely.
meaningful, fast way.
I agree totally. If you find out that answer in the next year, please let me know. It is a
Well, it's
challenge.
funny. I was I Steve Schwab, who is from
Oh yeah,
Costco, who is just part of just made the bid for Vacasa, right? And
yes.
that's sort of been industry news recently.
Hmm.
I was texting with him, and then I decided to sort of just publicly post on LinkedIn what I had texted him about, which was sort of this idea of like, hey, Steve, like if I were you, I'd figure out how do you like if you do end up acquiring Vacasa and it comes into Costco, how do you like from day one start building a Marriott like model where you build maybe 3 or 4 brands, right, and then you enable these local franchisees to opt in to the brand that best aligns with their their portfolio, maybe you have a Ritz Carlton brand,
Yeah.
maybe your
Yeah.
supply is more of a Courtyard. And anyway, so there
Hmm.
was some interesting dialogue on LinkedIn back and forth from people that either liked the idea or said it would never work because of X, Y, or Z reasons. I'm curious, when you think about like the franchise model in this space, is that something that's interesting to you? Do you think that there are legs to that? What do you think about franchising in the space?
Not in the luxury or ultra luxury side. I
Yeah,
think it's a
yeah,
lot of opportunity. I mean, we've seen Sky Run and some others in Europe that are reasonably successful. I think it's hard, but I don't see it in the. I see a lot some consolidation in the luxury side, and then you pull up your pants on the branding, and it's a lot of work, and you have to dismiss some properties, but I think that can be done.
yeah,
But franchising, I think it's just a harder model for our business.
yeah, yeah. And do you think it's just because of the consumer that you're trying to attract? Is it because inventory is so varied? Like, why do you think it's hard?
I think it's harder for the entrepreneur. I mean, you need to split up the pie a bit more. Is it? It's not that difficult a business. It's actually a simple model. So franchising probably doesn't come into play as much.
Mm,
And I mean, having said that, you have these big brands like Vacasa. And I know it's not a franchise, but I think maybe it's more appropriate when there are bigger global brands around that carry the heavy weight of like some of the real estate chains and brands, franchises. It's where you get the recognition when people are willing to spend a lot of money. They're probably going to go to a franchise real estate brand, right?
yeah, yeah. No, I think you're right there. When you think about markets, maybe even markets for Serenity residences that you're focused on, where do you see opportunity to maybe markets that have been underinvested in on the luxury side, maybe markets that are just emerging, that are potentially worth investing in? Any sort of hot takes or ideas you have on where you think there is opportunity to build a business like Serenity Residences, right? Or where you would even go next as you expand your business?
Good question. I think any popular tourism market globally, where state of Florida, any of the big ski markets in the United States, in Europe, Italy is Italy generally is number one destination for Americans for villa, mainstream or luxury stay for sure, and probably always will because of diversification. And Italy has branded itself over the years very well for the
Yeah,
American market. France
yeah,
as well. I think those markets exist, and you need to do it better now. It's time to let's bring our industry up a notch. We know that some markets are up and down. I mean, the poor folks in Ibiza the last couple of years have seen the slide.
yeah,
I hope it comes back. Some people have said they're moving over to other parts of Spain, Marbella or Mallorca or different markets. And we know also St. Bart's has been a bit flat. I hope those people
mm,
don't come after me, but that's just reality, right? So, it comes and goes. And I think that's always tough too.
yeah. And so you would continue to basically invest in markets where there's already a lot of consumer demand, where
I think
people
so.
are coming to today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting.
I would. I don't see there's anything growth on the luxury, ultra luxury side. I think just do things better, better location, better homes, and learn. Just learn better. Let's and build a brand.
Yeah,
I don't think it's complicated. Just do it 20% better than anyone else. To
yeah.
be honest.
What do you think about I talked to a bunch of friends who are entrepreneurs who came from tech. Maybe they had like an exit, and now they're trying to figure out what they want to do. They don't necessarily they might still be renting like a beautiful New York apartment. They don't want to necessarily
Sure.
buy like a single family home. Like instead, they want to go invest in sort of like invest in real estate that specifically real estate that could be repurposed for hospitality. And I hear folks asking questions around and looking for advice on markets like Costa Rica or even like
Mhm.
Medellin in Colombia. Like these sort of like they're at least in like the tech world and even a bunch of my friends, right? There are these like new hotspots that people are like going
Sure.
to and checking out, right? And there isn't, from my observations, anyways, like clear leaders in sort of like the luxury spaces in these markets. Yeah, there are a couple, but like they're not amazing. What if you were a young entrepreneur? Like, would you be like betting? It sounds like you would prefer to go to places where there's already clear demand and demand is like very historical. Well, I guess what would prevent you from being interested in markets like Costa Rica or Colombia?
Any markets where regulation is going to affect
Mm,
us, which we've already
yeah,
dealt. I mean, last 2 years, all the changes. So definitely that. And it depends if it was luxury or mainstream. I think you've mentioned some. I wouldn't. I know where I wouldn't go, but I
Where would
don't.
you not go? Where would you not
Yeah,
go?
at the moment, I wouldn't go for the markets I mentioned. I probably wouldn't go because of the. Well, I think ski is tough. I think the
Yeah.
future is ski is tough. To be honest, there's a lot of good operators in almost all markets right now. You know why? I think there's a lot of secondary markets in places like France and Italy,
Mm,
really
mm,
great secondary communities along the coast or in very safe, beautiful towns where, as we spoke earlier about more experiential travel and more foodie or wine or activities, people are more open to the smaller areas of certain regions. They're just thrilled to be in France or Italy. You know, it doesn't really
yeah.
matter to them. I think there's all sorts of great communities that I've come to know over just the last 2 years. Probably same to be said for some of the U.S. markets, but not as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. It's interesting. I had some friends that were in Italy recently, and I've seen this behavior. And actually, my wife and I got married in Italy, so I
Oh,
love
very good.
Italy. Classic American, right?
Yeah,
But
same.
but one of the observations I've had is folks used to like go to Rome for like a week and then they'd
Mhm.
bounce around maybe a couple other places. And now what's happening, at least in my circles, is people are going to Rome for a day or two and then they're hopping on the train and they're venturing out to like Siena and they're like
Yep.
staying in Siena for a long time, or they're going to Assisi, right? And they're staying in these smaller hillside countryside towns that have, quite frankly, the charm that I think that most
Mhm.
Americans seek,
I think
that
you're right.
Rome kind of just doesn't really. I mean, Rome's great for lots of other reasons, but it doesn't evoke sort of the emotion that I think people are looking for. So it is interesting to kind of even just see from a consumer behavior, and I really think this is because of the internet, because of technology. Consumers are able to do more research about these towns
Right.
that
Yes,
are
that's true.
historically, underappreciated or whatnot, are seeing sort of these second wins, which I think is very exciting for both the consumer and
I,
obviously the operator.
I think you're dead on. I think you're right as a reason why, but also a lot of these secondary and these other communities they put infrastructure in. You know,
Yeah,
since COVID too, there's more restaurants, there's more too. The service is increasing a bit better in a lot of markets.
yeah.
So it just makes it more applicable too, and combined with, like you said, people want to try new experiences. I think those places are going to do really well the next few years.
Yeah, yeah. When you think about sort of the future of, let's say, the next 5 years, as you think about scaling Sirreti residences, as you think about Sirreti list, as you think about sort of just the consumer, what's maybe one or two things that you're betting on most, whether it be like a specific location, whether it be an additional element of service that you think that more consumers are going to demand, whether it be sort of an over indexing and sort of brand building and marketing over the next few years. Like if you were to consult with an operator, let's just say, to make it easy, who's similar to you in many respects, and you were to encourage them on how to build their business over the next few years, what are like one or two maybe slightly unconventional words of advice that you might bestow upon them?
Um, don't worry what your competitors are charging. Don't
Hmm.
worry about them. Worry about your clients.
Hmm.
I don't know, one famous billionaire I listen to and is very customer focused. Don't even pay attention. Do your thing. What you do, do it well. Especially if you've got a history of doing it well, continue to do it. I would say to one of my competitors, stay focused. Get homes that haven't been on and off the market for years. Get something fresh. Easier said
Hmm.
than done. It can take a year to get that prime home or two or 10, right? Staff it. Get staff training. We have a standard operating procedures. It's being finished up now, a Sirreti staff manual in
Hmm.
her house. You don't see that in our business. Our butler, by the way, was ex butler for, this is just Rome, by the way, ex Francois Mitterrand's butler. He's ex president
Wow.
of France. We're bringing that a level. He loves this idea of taking care of tourists. He took house guests before. So we want to bring that level up. Is it over the top? It might be for some, but we know we're not going to make any mistakes, and just keep delivering. And then it's a combination of branding that and the privacy, because
Hmm.
I think this wealth will continue. We're going to see trillionaires, aren't we? Maybe my kids will in the future, and then money becomes even more meaningless. So then it comes down to the experience, the service, and so I would say just keep building on that model. That's what I would tell people, because and the privacy of dealing with these people. They don't
Yeah.
want to see their name or heard, or I think just that combination, kind of what that's why I do it. So I would think that it can win for other people too.
Yeah. Two final questions for you, Wolf. One is around, you guys work with travel agents, and that's, I think one of the ways that
Totally.
you get access to these guests. Oh, I have historically thought that like travel agents sort of were, a thing of yesteryear, right? With the rise of the OTA, right? I think your
Hmm.
general consumer, anyways, doesn't think to use travel advisors. But it's been interesting. I've seen a couple startups pop up in this space recently. I think one's called like Flora or Fora or something
All
like
right.
that.
Yeah. No. Well,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
very. Yeah.
And I'm just curious, like, do you think there's sort of this renaissance happening with travel agents? Like, is this a play that more operators should partner with? Like, I think your general vacation rental manager, or even folks at the luxury level, are not necessarily using travel agents as part of their sort of growth strategy. Is this sort of a looked over demand channel that more
Yes.
people should pay attention to?
First of all, there's more agents than there were even before COVID. So we
Wow.
did. So we had two data guys. We learned that there was 1,700, in 20, 21, 20 and 21, I should say, 1,700 just in the U.S. new full-time licensed travel agents that weren't into the market. And we
Wow.
found that out through associations, through insurance regulators, through state regulators, where you have to be. So we know that they're official. They're not just doing one trip a year for their grandpa or uncle, right? And those are all high end. We have a very large database, and there's a lot. Most of that market comes from them, and
Yeah.
that's also a very very high end market. You're not getting the travel agents doing simple hotel bookings or Disneyland. They want the complexity, they want the privacy, and they're almost all now luxury or ultra luxury, and it has grown. J.P. Morgan bought a travel agency chain 2 years ago, 3 years
Mm,
ago, and did that for a reason.
mm,
So 100% our industry should. Problem is, we still have to convince some of the market in the travel trade why this is a good thing. They
yeah.
get it, but why would they trust? It's hard. You've got to prove to them that you have the infrastructure, that you have the service.
Yeah.
They're the same price or less expensive than taking a booking from an online channel. They're very
Yeah.
economical, and they have repeat business, and so I would say absolutely, we promote that a lot in our community.
And do you think the reason sort of you have to convince the industry is that there just are not as many recognizable, reputable brands in sort of like the vacation rental space, as opposed to the hotel space? Is that the reason there?
Partly, and we never.
Yeah.
I mean, generally, we never went after it.
Yeah.
We're very lazy in our industry. Put them on the channels and wait for the inquiries and bookings come in.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I think I would hope that they take your suggestion, and more people consider it. There's a lot of great agents out there with a lot of good clients.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's super interesting, and I recently was brainstorming a couple ideas with some folks, and it was remarkable because these are some of my favorite operators in the space, and I
Oh,
think that they've
good.
got incredible product. They're super interesting, and none of them, like, everyone's working with influencers, right? And creators to come promote their stays, but no one's working with travel agents. So it was
That's
just sort
true.
of an interesting sort of observation. My last question for you, Wolf, is around technology. So I'm just curious. Let's make this personal. As you think about your business and your clientele, is there a piece of tech, or is there information or data that you wish you and your team had more readily available to be able to better serve your clients? Does anything come to mind there of sort of like a missing gap in the market?
Good question. I'd love to stalk my clients before they book with us to see who they're else they're talking to. No, it's a great question, but no. I mean, we're quite simple with our email. A lot of WhatsApp. That's
Yeah,
changed over the years, but nothing more complex than that. Probably because we have less privy access generally to them, and the
yeah.
numbers are low. Let's face it. We're not doing 100 bookings a week. It's not how it works. So nothing. It's a great question. I don't have a proper answer, Zach. I'm sorry.
No, no problem at all. I mean, hey, you can think on that, and you guys are in this very interesting situation too, where the very people that you're trying to serve are very private, and so they're not going to fill out a form with 20 fields telling you all the things that they like and don't like and want, right? They expect those things to somehow be communicated. Um, I'm always just surprised that some of the best operators, how much time they just spend on researching their guests, right? And trying to to your point, trying to figure out like what are the ages of their kids without
Sometimes
having to directly ask. Yeah.
well, I mean, I think a lot of the PAs to some of these are pretty good and accustomed to that.
Yeah.
So it's not bad, but you're right. It's some won't, and
Yeah.
some won't even give the name. Some, it's NDAs as well. It's not that uncommon to have an NDA. I can't even tell
Yeah.
my colleagues,
Yeah.
who's coming. It doesn't. It used to be exciting. Is it now?
Yeah.
Let's just take care of them, right? It's still the same. Still a body that needs to be taken care of, and they want to enjoy their time.
Yeah. Which I've always found interesting because I think sometimes if you were to tell your staff, people would maybe be motivated to work even harder to make sure it
That's
was an
true.
exceptional experience. But no, I understand. Well, if this has been an awesome conversation, I'm really appreciative of the work that you do. And if folks who are listening to this conversation think that they might have a property that could qualify or a couple properties that might qualify for the Sirreti list, what's the best way for them to sort of apply or nominate themselves? Does something like that exist?
Yeah, so the SirretiList.com at the bottom. There's all the deals. You can even download the guide and do it's a 2-level of application and just go there. Otherwise, you can, if it's not clear or need more, it's wolf@Sirreti.com. Happy to support anyone that's interested.
Awesome. And then if there is a listener who thinks that they might have a property that could qualify for Sirreti residences, is that also the best way to reach you?
I would be as happy as they would be. Absolutely. They're few and far between. I would encourage that. Yeah, definitely reach out. I appreciate that.
Wonderful. Well, I'll have those links in the show notes below, listeners. Wolf, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Zach. I enjoyed it as well.
Hey friends, thanks for joining us for this episode of Behind the Stays. I'd love to know what you thought of the episode. Feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram at Behind the Stays or send me an email at zach@joinjourney.com. If this is your first time tuning in, it's a pleasure to have you and we hope to have you back again soon. But if you've been a listener for a while, I'd greatly appreciate if you'd subscribe to the show if you aren't already, and then leave us a rating and review of the show wherever you're streaming this podcast. Oh, and if you know a hotelier or a hospitality entrepreneur that's building something new and novel, I invite you to introduce them to me so that my team and I can discuss bringing them on the show. Again, you can just shoot me an email at zach@joinjourney.com or a DM on Instagram. Behind the Scenes is brought to you by Journey, a next-generation loyalty program built for the modern traveler. We're looking to onboard new boutique hotels, unique stays, and the top vacation rental management companies onto our platform every day. If you're a hospitality entrepreneur who has a stay or a collection of stays with soul, we'd love for you to apply to join our alliance at joinjourney.com/alliance. Again, that's joinjourney.com/alliance. Thanks for being here, y'all. We will see you next time.